man, those images coming out of Valencia, Spain, just
Yeah.
devastating, right?
Yeah.
Streets like literally turning into rivers, homes just swallowed up by the floodwater. I mean, it's crazy. Makes
Yeah.
you think, you know.
It really does put the power of nature into perspective.
It does. But here on the deep dive, we like to, go a little deeper beyond just the headlines, right?
Right.
So today, we're going to dive deep into these catastrophic floods in Valencia. We're talking causes, impact, how people are responding, the whole deal.
The whole 9 yards.
Exactly. We've got news reports, videos from the ground, even some official statements.
It's a complex situation for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But I think a good place to start is acknowledging the human cost, which is tragically high.
Yeah.
At least 72 lives lost. A major tragedy.
Yeah, every single one of those numbers represents a story
Exactly.
of immense personal suffering. And to even start to grasp the scale of this disaster, it helps to understand Valencia itself, right? I mean, it's a vibrant city, beautiful beaches, historical architecture, thriving agriculture. I've always wanted to visit, actually. See those orange groves stretching as far as the eye can see.
It's a region where the economy and culture are deeply intertwined with the land and the sea.
Oh, absolutely.
So when an event like this hits, the impact goes far beyond the immediate damage.
Oh, kidding. And speaking of the cause, the term you keep hearing is gota fria, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which translates to cold drop.
Yeah.
Can you break that down for us a little bit?
Sure. So meteorologically, it's a mass of cold air high in the atmosphere. It detaches from the main flow. And when that cold air slams into the warm, moist air, typical of coastal regions like Valencia, you get the perfect recipe for torrential rain and flash floods.
And this wasn't just any gota fria, right? I mean, they're calling this one historically intense.
They are. The sheer volume of rainfall in such a short time was exceptional, even for a region prone to these types of weather systems.
Yeah.
That intensity is what made this event so devastating. I mean, to put it in perspective, some areas received a year's worth of rain in just 24 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's hard to even fathom.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced anything like that, even on a smaller scale?
I have, yeah. I was caught in a flash flood a few years back, hiking in the mountains.
Oh, wow.
And it was terrifying how quickly a peaceful stream can turn into a raging torrent.
Yeah, you don't really think about it until you see it, I guess.
No, you don't.
And this brings us to a question a lot of folks are asking, right? Is this a sign of climate change?
It's tempting to point to any extreme weather event and say, see, climate change. But it's tricky to directly link a single event to climate change. But climate scientists are warning us that warmer Mediterranean waters will likely fuel more intense gota frias in the future.
So it's less about blaming climate change for this specific event and more about recognizing a worrying trend, I guess.
Precisely. This tragedy in Valencia underscores the urgency of addressing climate change and preparing for its consequences.
Okay. Let's delve into the impact of these floods a little bit more.
Okay.
We know the death toll is just heartbreaking, but the damage extends far beyond that, right?
It does, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the images coming out of Valencia are just, well, they're hard to process. Streets and urban areas transformed into raging rivers, cars swept away like toys, homes and businesses completely submerged.
Yeah.
But the devastation reaches far beyond the city itself.
Oh, absolutely. I was seeing some reports, coastal regions just battered by high waves, rising sea levels. Imagine the force of that water just crashing against those beautiful beaches and coastal towns. And then, of course, there's the impact on agriculture,
Right.
which is a cornerstone of Valencia's economy.
Huge. Experts estimate that the agricultural losses could reach billions of euros, which potentially could impact global orange juice prices.
Oh.
We're talking about vast fields of oranges, vegetables, other crops completely underwater. The economic blow to farmers is going to be devastating.
It's a ripple effect, isn't it? I mean, and on top of all that, there's the damage to critical infrastructure, roads, bridges, sewage systems. I read about a village that was completely cut off because a bridge collapsed.
Yeah, it really highlights the cascading consequences of a disaster like this. The impact ripples outwards, affecting every aspect of life in the region. And the recovery process is going to be long and complex.
Yeah. It's hard to find a silver lining in all this, but are there any signs of resilience or hope emerging from the wreckage?
There are, actually. The sources we've gathered highlight inspiring examples of people coming together to support each other. For instance, the local Catholic Church has mobilized its resources to provide shelter, food, and comfort to those who've lost everything.
And the Spanish government has declared 3 days of national mourning,
Yeah,
acknowledging the collective grief and the scale of this tragedy. That's a pretty powerful gesture, I think.
it is. It speaks to the shared sense of loss and the need for solidarity in times of crisis.
It's also interesting to see how widely this event is being covered in the media. Images and videos from Valencia are being shared globally, really shows how quickly information can spread in times of crisis.
That's a double-edged sword, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
On the one hand, it raises awareness and can mobilize international support, but on the other hand, it can be overwhelming,
Right.
amplifying the sense of fear and helplessness.
Right. It highlights the need for responsible reporting.
Yes.
Information that's accurate, informative, and ultimately empowering.
Absolutely.
So we've covered the immediate impact, the human cost, and the initial response. But now I think it's time to step back and consider the bigger picture. What are the long-term implications of this event?
Yeah.
And what does it mean for the future of Valencia and other regions facing similar challenges?
That's a great question.
We were just talking about the media coverage of this tragedy, and it made me think about that balance, right? Between the economic needs.
Environmental protection.
Right.
Valencia, with its reliance on tourism and agriculture, that's a prime example of that challenge, isn't it?
It really is. Coastal communities all over the world are grappling with this same dilemma.
Yeah.
How do you protect livelihoods that depend on coastal development while safeguarding those areas from rising sea levels and increasingly powerful storms? It's a question that's becoming more and more urgent with each passing year.
Yeah, and this event in Valencia, it feels like a wake-up call.
It does.
Like we can't keep ignoring these warnings about climate change. It's just not an option anymore.
I agree. As tragic as it is, this could be the catalyst that forces us to ask some hard questions about our priorities and how we plan for the future, not just in Valencia, but globally.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk solutions. What can be done to actually mitigate the risks of these extreme weather events?
Well, one key area is infrastructure.
We need to design and build infrastructure that can withstand the impacts of a changing climate. Think stronger bridges, more resilient coastal defenses, and better drainage systems in urban areas.
That sounds like a massive undertaking, both in terms of engineering and investment.
It is, but it requires a shift in our thinking. We need to adopt a long-term perspective, recognizing that the cost of inaction is far greater than the cost of investing in climate-resilient infrastructure now.
And it's not just about physical infrastructure, right? There's also the human element, disaster preparedness, response systems, all that.
Absolutely. Early warning systems are crucial. People need to be informed about potential risks and know how to protect themselves.
Yeah, some reports mention that communities in Valencia were caught off guard by the speed and intensity of the flooding.
That's a common problem, unfortunately.
Yeah, but right.
We tend to underestimate nature's power. And when it
Right.
comes to flash floods, time is of the essence. Every minute counts.
So improving communication and coordination during emergencies, that's vital. What does that actually look like in practice?
It means ensuring that evacuation routes are clear and accessible, that there's adequate shelter for those who are displaced, and that emergency services can reach those in need quickly and efficiently.
So it sounds like a massive collaborative efforts needed. Governments, communities, individuals, all working together.
Exactly. We need to be proactive, not reactive. The events in Valencia are a stark reminder that we can't afford to wait for the next disaster to strike before we take action.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of the challenge, but it's important to remember that we can all make a difference. Even small actions can have a ripple effect.
Absolutely. Reducing our carbon footprint, supporting sustainable practices, advocating for change, these are all ways that individuals can contribute to a more resilient future.
I really like that you mentioned advocating for change because ultimately addressing climate change requires systemic solutions, right? We need governments and businesses to step up and take responsibility.
I completely agree. This isn't just about individual actions, it's about collective action. It's about demanding that our leaders prioritize climate resilience and invest in solutions that will protect our communities and our planet.
It's about recognizing that the choices we make today will have consequences for generations to come. This isn't just about us, it's about our children and grandchildren.
Precisely. The legacy we leave behind will be shaped by the actions we take now.
Okay, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the specific challenges facing Valencia as they move forward from this disaster. What are the immediate priorities?
Well, the most urgent need is providing aid and support to those who have been affected. This includes everything from emergency shelter and food to medical care and psychological support. Trauma is a very real consequence of an event like this.
Yeah, the reports I've read highlight that many people have lost their homes and their livelihoods, rebuilding their lives from scratch. I mean, that's a daunting task.
Yes, the economic impact of this disaster is going to be significant. Businesses have been destroyed, crops have been wiped out, and critical infrastructure needs to be rebuilt. It's a long road ahead.
Yeah, the long road to recovery, it's hard to even imagine. It's going to be a challenging journey. But are there any glimmers of hope?
There are. Amidst the devastation, I'm struck by the resilience of the people of Valencia. There's a strong sense of community and a determination to rebuild.
I've seen those stories too, neighbors helping neighbors, volunteers distributing supplies, people coming together to offer support in any way they can. It's really inspiring.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit shines through.
Yeah. It's that spirit of resilience that will ultimately guide Valencia through this difficult period.
I believe so. And it's that same spirit that needs to drive our global response to climate change. We need to come together as a global community, recognize the urgency of the challenge, and work together to build a more sustainable and resilient future. This is not just a problem for Valencia, it's a problem for all of us.
Well said. As we move into the final part of our deep dive, let's explore some key takeaways from this event and consider what it means for the future of Valencia and other communities facing similar challenges. So, welcome back to the deep dive. We've been unpacking this heartbreaking situation in Valencia, trying to understand the causes, the impact, the response to these catastrophic floods. What stands out to you as we kind of reflect on everything we talked about?
For me, it's the undeniable reality of climate change and its connection to these increasingly extreme weather events. It's hard to ignore the science, isn't it?
It really is. Well, it's difficult to pin any single event, solely on climate change. The consensus is pretty clear. Climate change is amplifying the frequency and intensity of these extreme weather events. Globally, yeah. So that means what happened in Valencia is like a potential preview of what's to come in other parts of the world.
Absolutely. And it underscores the urgency of acting on two fronts. Mitigating climate change itself and adapting to the consequences that we're already seeing.
So what does that look like in practical terms? We've talked about infrastructure, disaster preparedness, but it feels like a global problem that needs global solutions.
It does. You're absolutely right. It requires a shift in thinking at every level. International cooperation, collaborative strategies, and a commitment to protecting our planet as a whole.
And yet, it can feel so overwhelming, like what can one person really do?
That's where the power of individual action comes in. Every choice we make matters. Think about reducing your own carbon footprint, supporting sustainable practices, and using your voice to advocate for change. These might seem like small steps, but they have a ripple effect.
We've also seen some incredible examples of community resilience in Valencia.
Right.
Neighbors helping neighbors, volunteers offering support. It's a testament to the human spirit, even in the face of tragedy. Why do you think that's so important in all this?
It's about recognizing that we're not alone in this. Building strong communities, fostering a sense of shared responsibility, and creating support systems, these are essential elements of navigating the challenges of a changing climate.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Valencia floods, what's the key takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with?
The events in Valencia are a stark reminder of our interconnectedness, of how vulnerable we are to the forces of nature and how urgently we need to address the climate crisis. But they also highlight the power of human resilience, the importance of community, and the potential for positive change.
It's a powerful message, isn't it? We have a choice to make. You can choose a path of inaction, accepting the growing risks of climate change, or we can choose a path of action, innovation, and collaboration. The choice is ours.
Exactly. And we encourage you to take what we've discussed today and dig deeper, explore the sources we've used, stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay engaged. And thank you for joining us on this deep dive.